The Chicago Bulls, two of your former teams. How do you choose tonight?
Oh, it's easy. I don't bleed red. I bleed green.
We know that about you, although there is a lot of red happening there. Celtics back on track in a big way with that win over the Cavs last night, taking on another Bulls team that's struggling right now. But the biggest news of the night, Jason Tatum is back.
Yeah, he's back, and I like the way the Celtics did this. This is a team effort. Kemba Walker, the night before, wasn't going to play tonight. Tatum could have gone, but he wasn't going to play 2 games in a row. So Kemba sets him up. Jason knocks him down. So I'm super pumped about Tatum returning and seeing how he plays. I mean, I'm assuming we'll get a little bit of rust, but it's just cool that he's out there. The whole on-court versus off-court, it's a big deal for the Celtics.
We'll hear from Brad Stevens, but he said Jason not dealing with a strict minutes restriction, and we get the dynamic duo back. Jaylen Brown carrying the load without JT, and now they're reunited.
Yeah, the thing that's great about Brown is you don't have to call a lot of plays for him. He can be effective. The ball finds him. He looks to go to work. He looks to be aggressive. Love his playmaking. And right now, offensively, what can't he do? Shoots it. Off the dribble, catch and shoot, drive, close out, and #1 in the NBA right now in points in transition.
One thing he can't do, win Player of the Week in the Eastern Conference.
Abby, I don't have a vote for that, so stop looking my way.
I guess the team's got to win.
Yeah.
I look to you for all the answers. This is Celtics pregame live. We're just getting started. Celtics coming off a win, right back on track. We'll see if they can carry that momentum into tonight. I mentioned, and I got to tell you, after being on the road for a few years with Scal, the only place that he's more beloved than here in Boston is Chicago. So we decided to indulge my friend. I said that tongue-in-cheek. But here now is a special segment that we are calling Players Only. Scal, take it away.
All right, thanks, Abby. So we're going to be here with 2 big-time Chicago Bull guys that work in TV, and also former Chicago Bulls in Kendall Gill and Will Perdue. Guys, how you guys doing?
All right, how are you?
Good, good. So first, before I want to get into some of these questions, first thing I want to do is, what is the difference between this Bulls team this year? I know they got a new coach, new management. Kind of just sum up the differences between last year and this year.
Well, I think it's all about the attitude and the respect for not only, as you talked about, Scal, the new management and the new coach. And I think now you're looking at a team that has bought in. And these guys are playing hard every night, even though they had a little bit of a setback against the Lakers.
Yeah, and I think it's because they're sharing the basketball. Also, roles are being defined. Kobe White is now the point guard on this team. Zach LaVine is taking another step towards being an all-star. Not only is he scoring, but he's filling up the stat sheet in every category: assists, rebounds, steals. He's doing it all. But what the Bulls have to do is learn now how not to turn the basketball over and share it every night. You're going to see a lot of success from them.
All right, so we got 2 historic franchises. The Celtics have Larry Bird. Obviously, the Bulls have Michael Jordan, 2 guys known for their trash talking. Tell me some of the stories about some of the biggest trash talkers you guys have ever played against. Kendall, I'll start with you.
Well, you just mentioned one of them, Larry Bird. When I was a rookie, Larry Bird at the Boston Garden in Boston said to me, and he had the basketball out at the three-point line. And by then, Larry was done, but because of his back, but he could still shoot the basketball. He has the basketball right here, Will, and he goes, "Come here, rookie, come here, rookie." And like a dumb rookie, I went, and he rises up, knocks down the shot, and then on our way back down the court, he's like, "You dumbass rookie, why did you go?"
I'll take it even a step further, because we had a situation where I jumped out, had Larry Bird dead to rights.
Yeah.
Took a charge, whistle blew, I was all jacked up, and he goes, "Rookie, what are you talking about? That foul's on you." And I said, "What?" And then Danny Ainge walked by and said, "You better know who you're talking to, rookie."
Yeah, that's the way it was, man.
And trash talking is more than just when you're playing against opponents in the NBA. I remember I went to Michael Jordan's basketball camp, and I was a counselor there. And, the first half you play with all the kids there. And Jordan's all high fives and nice job and all this stuff. All of a sudden, they let the campers go back to the rooms or the dorms, and a different guy comes out. So you guys had some experience with Jordan in practice. And what is he like, day in and day out in practice?
Well, we'll have to answer that one. I never played with him, but I can tell you another story about him.
I know had some late-night card games with him, but, hey, let me put it this way, Scal. When MJ thought that Scotty was feeling his oats a little bit, he went to Phil and was like, Phil, put Scotty on the other team tonight. Make sure he guards me in practice. And basically, it was a one-on-one game, and the other 8 guys just stood around and watched because it was entertaining. But he also let Scotty know who the king was.
Yeah, and listen, one night I'm playing cards with Michael, and he just will not leave my house because I'm beating him out of all of his money. He will not leave my house until he wins all of his money back. Most people would want Michael Jordan to be over their house. They would be excited. I was actually ready for this guy to leave my house.
Well, let's go. Speaking of gambling, what is some of the craziest things you've seen guys bet on?
Well, I saw Scotty Burrell lose a $35,000 hand on the plane back from the West Coast trip to Alonzo Mourning. That was pretty big, man.
You know, we all know how competitive Michael is, right? Cards, blackjack. Well, remember when I first came into the league, we were traveling on United Airlines, so we had to walk through O'Hare Airport. He would go buy two copies of the paper. He'd get the word jumble, you know, where you got to find the words and circle them, and then he'd be willing to bet on them. You, who wants to do it? 10, 20, whatever you're willing to do it, ready, go. And whoever could find all the words the quickest.
We had this thing in Boston during the 08 season where when we're shooting free throws, it's $100 a free throw. So you shoot 10 of them. So if you don't shoot well, you can lose up to $1,000. But the caveat of all this was you were allowed to do anything you want to the guy. You just couldn't touch him. So you could throw a jab at the guy. As long as you didn't touch him, it was okay. And the guys had to go up there and knock down free throws. And it was that was a really interesting way of working on your game after practice. Now, one last thing real quick. Intimidation. You guys played in big games against other types. Who's the most intimidating force you've ever come across?
Well, you know, I was never intimidated by anyone, but I can tell you the hardest person who I had to guard, and that intimidated me. A lot of people ask me, well, you know, they're surprised when I don't say Michael Jordan. It's Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf, former Chris Jackson, the first time that I faced him when he was at LSU. The guy was just phenomenal. He actually was dribbling the basketball up after the tip-off, and I was guarding him, and I'm guarding him, and all of a sudden the crowd starts cheering. I didn't know that he had already scored. That's how good he was.
And I always used to talk about, because when I first came in the league, you had some big guys. Wasn't necessarily intimidated by him, but the fact that I had to go up against Mark Eaton. He was about 7'5", about 325, and literally when you would try to go through him or around him, it was just like running into a brick wall. Yeah. Now, Scal, I know we got to go, but before we go, you got to be careful now, because we always know when the mics are on, and I heard you asking, how come the Bull show is only 30 minutes and ours is an hour?
I didn't know.
They got to justify that big salary they pay you, my man.
I got to get those commercials. I'll tell you, the most intimidating guy I ever faced was when I was 11 years old playing against a 25-year-old. They don't do that anymore, but I remember going to the park. I was scared, you know what. So thanks, guys.
All right, man.
All right, Scal.
Well done, Scal. Filling in, hosting, I'm impressed.
Where's Perk?
We're not talking about that. We are just under 48 minutes away from tip-off Celtics and Bulls and the return of this man, Jason Tatum. He missed 5 games playing for the first time since January 9th due to health and safety protocols. Earlier today, he caught up with Amanda Pflugrad of Celtics.com to talk about what this experience has been like.
It was scary. You know, just when I first found out, it was kind of a shock. And then, you know, you worry about, you know, who you were around and your family and stuff like that. But, you know, thankfully, you know, it wasn't too bad. I was fine for most of the time, so just relaxing.
We welcome in our insider, Chris Forsberg, now. And while it is very nice to hear Jason Tatum speak, I think all of us still really curious about what we're going to see from him tonight. The Celtics took it slow, bringing him back, Chris. And Brad Stevens said he won't be facing a very serious a strict minutes restriction, I should say. But really, his conditioning is going to dictate how long he plays tonight.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting that Brad said he could go up to 30 minutes. And essentially what they did was on Saturday, they put him through a little bit of a simulated game at the team's practice facility, like let him stretch out his lungs a little bit. You know, now instead of having to ease him back in and play him maybe 20, 25 minutes in his first game, now you're able to throw him out there tonight and play him a little bit longer. Again, his conditioning will dictate just how long he's able to get out there. But I cannot understate this. Like, Jason Tatum being on the floor is going to just make the game so much easier for all the guys out there, and especially without Kemba, it's a great chance to see and remind us just how impactful he can be.
Although we are still waiting to hear what the lineup is going to be, if Brad Stevens is going to go back to that double big lineup with Marcus Smart starting at the point guard again. What do you want to see? What should we expect to see from Jason in this first game back?
Yeah, like, I don't know how much we'll be able to read into it. Like, again, if he's just a little bit gassed after his first shift, I don't think anyone can hold it against him. He's been down for 2 weeks. Really, in that first week, Brad was telling us you can't do anything. Like, they can literally not have them doing any activity. We know, like, we hear every guy coming back from injury say, there's a difference between working out on your Peloton and getting back out there and actually doing basketball. So I don't have huge hopes. I just want to see, you know, that there'll be rust, but, like, it's Jason Tatum. Like, I feel like there's going to be spurts where we see that old Tatum. The thing is, he was playing at such a high level before the break. I just want to see if he can get back close to that or how long it does take him to get there.
True. I remember exactly where I was when news first broke. The Celtics were playing against the Pelicans. I was in New Orleans getting ready for the game, and I was just in total shock, Chris. I still can't believe it.
Yeah, I flew in the morning of that game, and I remember being so excited because it was Zion, you know, our first look at him really going up against the Celtics. And I remember seeing the TMZ feed as I'm in my Uber over to the hotel, and oh my, you know, just like the wash of emotions that goes over you. And then at the arena, you know, like Jason Tatum was just so hit hard by it and didn't want to talk after the game, and understandably so. And you could just see it on the guys' faces. It was hard for them just to go out and play basketball. I mean, because of this pandemic, it feels like way longer than a year ago at this point, but it just still doesn't seem real. Like you said, it just hasn't. I just don't know how to put it in words. It's just like I see the in memoriam and behind you, and it's just like it just still doesn't feel real.
And you're right. Being in the arena that night, it just felt like there was this heavy black cloud, and to be in a state of mourning with so many people, the entire NBA family, everyone, and then so many people around the world. It was just something that I have never experienced before. And I feel like you're right. With the onset of the pandemic, we have experienced so much more since then. And it feels like this was kind of a moment in time that really marked what 2020 was going to be, and just this terrible year. But when you think of Kobe, you think of, especially in retirement, is just how great of a mentor he was. And reaching out, I remember Isaiah Thomas. He reached out to him during that playoff run early in 2016, 2017, and then also with Jason Tatum and taking him under his wing.
Yeah, and I was going to say even Peyton Pritchard, one of his first Oregon teams there, Kobe popped into a practice and just what it meant to him. But especially with Isaiah, as Isaiah's going through this transcendent period where he's evolving into an All-NBA, an MVP caliber player that year, you know, getting to call Kobe and go over game film and the level of detail that Kobe was able to break down everything and give him even just that much more confidence. And then Jason Tatum growing up idolizing Kobe Bryant and the way he's able to connect with him, and just, you know, that one workout became monumental. It became a bit of a joke because Tatum started loving those long twos for a little bit. Yeah. But you could tell how much it meant to Tatum and how much, again, just getting a chance to talk to Kobe had such a profound impact on these players and these small meetings. You know, Gordon Hayward bumping into him at one point. Like, it just lasted with these guys to have his email, to be able to call him. And it just speaks to what Kobe meant to the league, that these guys, like superstars that are making millions of dollars, are just overwhelmed by being able to pick his brain even just a little bit.
And that is just a handful of players who we have had experience with. To think about how many people he has impacted, and then the impact that he's also had on the WNBA and women's sports. And then you think about just how tragic that crash was and all of the families that were impacted. It's such a dark, dark day. And I'm not sure that I know we will never see anyone like Kobe again. And on the court as well, and what he brought, and something to this rivalry, this Lakers-Celtics rivalry. It's such a huge void.
Yeah, and I mean, we look ahead to Saturday. Lakers are in town. Yeah. You know, would have been nice to have Kobe and Gigi sitting on the sideline watching that, and it's just hard to know. And I know for guys like Isaiah and Gordon, just not being able to reach out and get that advice again, that just makes it so much tougher. Just to know how fleeting this all is, right? That in just an instant, it can all be taken away, and it's a good reminder to embrace this.
Welcome back. He's got the juice. Jason Tatum coming off an historic night. The first player in the shot clock era to put up 33 points in less than 20 minutes. It's his 5th game of the season with 30-plus and 7th straight game with 20-plus points. JB, what can't he do? His coach and his teammates also don't know. Pretty impressed by the young man.
The way that he's scoring, you know, his patience, his poise when he has the ball, you know, his rookie year 2, you know, that Jaylen Brown, you know, just put his head down and go and not really understand where he's going. But, you know, he works hard in it, you know, and you got to give him credit, and it showed. You know, that's why he's one of the best players, one of the best young players in this game, and doing what he's doing and doing what he's doing for this team to help this team be the best that we could be.
He's constantly working to improve. You know, he doesn't play passive. And I think that his skill, his improvement, and his aggressiveness are a good combination.
As we're back here on Celtics pregame live, it certainly has been fun to watch, Chris. I think the number that stands out to me for Jaylen when we're talking about it this season is his assist percentage. Nearly 20%. That's more than double what it was last season. And to me, it feels like that's really opening up everything for him on the court.
Well, if you ask him, it's just because his usage rate is up. But he's just it's like, and even yesterday when he scores 33 in 19 minutes, we're sitting there and pinging him about like, oh, you know, it must be, you know, how different is this year from last year? And he's just like, yeah. No, whatever. You know, he just won't toot his own horn because in his mind, he should be putting up 36, 40 in 19 minutes. And that's just what makes Jaylen Brown so special right now. But I do agree. The number one thing that stands out to me is that he gets to his spots and he shoots it with confidence, or he passes the ball when he draws attention better. And I keep saying, if you rewind the tape 2-3 years ago, maybe even last year at stretches, you know, he never had the ability to sort of see the whole floor, to create for others. And the Celtics really didn't love putting the ball in his hands because his ball handling wasn't tight enough at times to ensure that he'd have ball security. And so now he's the full complement. Like, he can do whatever. If the defense gives him a mid-range, he's going to pull up. If not, he's going to attack the basket. If not, he's going to spray it to someone on the side. And so I just think Jaylen is putting it all together. And again, the biggest thing, it's just becoming natural. Every night he's putting up these crazy numbers and he's just whatever. And we're maybe starting to feel the same way. But what he's doing is special.
Right, that is the true definition of an elite player, right? The consistency. And the thing with Jaylen, as you've been saying, is that he's doing it efficiently. And the most remarkable part, and we keep saying it, is it's coming off the shortest offseason in NBA history. Marcus Smart points to his growth, and while, yes, it has been a progression, but to me, the leap that he's made this season is something that I didn't expect.
So I do think it's a little bit of a carryover from the bubble. Like, whatever he put in during the pandemic, working out with Willie Brown.
I was going to say, we got to credit Grandpa.
Absolutely took him to another level. And he said, you know, working on all that boxing with the Marine, just made him a stronger player, challenged him in ways that he had never been challenged by a normal basketball trainer. And we started to see it. Like, I thought he was probably, you can't call him Boston's best player because Jason Tatum, again, the on-off splits say, like, he's the most important, but most consistent, certainly in the bubble, was Jaylen Brown. And it feels like even on a short offseason, he was able to carry that into this year. I think it's funny, I think it was last week, he got asked on a call, someone said, you know, what did you put into your mid-range game this offseason? And Jaylen sort of said, well, there really wasn't an offseason. It wasn't like I was able to go in the gym and get up a bunch of shots. It's just an overall progression. It's just accentuated by the fact that the Celtics had put the ball in his hands so much more and really had to without Kemba. And he's embraced that so much and shown, you know, even when Tatum goes down, I think we sat here and said, well, can Jaylen Brown be the focal point? Okay, you know, you can succeed when Kemba's out there or Tatum's out there. But for him to take it to another level when he's the guy, that's really telling.
He has had some help, though, and a pretty solid connection with Marcus Smart. Take a look at these numbers. The winning combination, it's brought to you by TD Bank. Smart to Brown. is the top assist-to-point score duo in the entire NBA. They also have the most assists in that combination. Chris, these guys have played together for Jalen's entire career, but what has made that connection prosper this season?
Well, remember, they've always kind of butted heads at times, right? Like, even in the bubble, there was some table tossing going on. But I think it's because they've, like, especially from Marcus's point of view, he's always tried to get the most out of Jaylen Brown because he knows he could do it. And as Marcus has evolved as a playmaker, Jaylen in tandem is now evolving as a scorer. And I think they've just sort of hit the perfect point where they're able to accentuate each other's talents. And this year, it just feels like it. You know, Marcus said it last night. When they get out and run, he just knows where Jalen's going to be. And that chemistry, that time together, just makes them that much more crisp when they're out there. You know, again, I think Marcus's playmaking is somewhat underrated. I think we all get hung up on when he takes too many shots, but his progression as a ball handler and being able to create for others has only helped Jaylen this year. It's crazy when you look at that list. Now, one, Jokic is on there twice, but which is amazing, the two different players. But it's like Stockton and Malone right now with Jaylen and Smart, right? Like, you know, it's not your typical pick and roll combination, but they run a couple pick and rolls with each other, flashes it over to Jaylen for a three. The fact that he's assisted on nearly half of Jalen's makes this year is remarkable.
And the connection that they have in the locker room as well. You talked about how Marcus challenges Jaylen, but those are the two outspoken leaders inside that room, and those are the two that are holding everyone else accountable.
Yeah, we heard Jaylen say it the other night after the bad defense down in Philly and coming off the New York game that he has to be the one that, with Smart, challenges this team to go to another level. And so I think while Marcus has always been that guy for this team, I think Jalen's evolving into that role. You know, again, as the Jays sort of become the focal point of this team, they both have to take on a little bit more vocal responsibility alongside Smart. And I think we're seeing that this year. Again, there were lapses that Jaylen would have that would make Marcus mad, but because they brought each other along like that, I think they're comfortable now where Jaylen can be a voice and put that pressure on everybody else to hold up the sort of defensive responsibility that Brad expects from this team.
And credit to Marcus and Kemba as well for allowing the Jays to ascend and really being their biggest fans. It's a really cool thing that we've gotten to witness. Speaking 26 minutes to go before tip-off between the Celtics and Bulls. Clearly, this game is going to happen, but the breaking news across the NBA, the Celtics' next game, they are scheduled to play the San Antonio Spurs on Wednesday, supposed to fly from Chicago to San Antonio at some point, either tonight or tomorrow. That game has been, the Spurs game tonight against the Pelicans has been postponed, Chris, because according to the NBA, that neither team has the minimum 8 players required to play because of contact tracing. So this is a little concerning.
Yeah, it's funny. Every time we get one of these emails from the league, and there's been a lot of them lately, I sort of look at the opponents, the two teams, and I go, all right, who is the one that can't field the team, and are they playing the Celtics anytime coming up soon? I didn't even think of it when I saw the Spurs one today, and then finally I put 2 and 2 together. I'm like, oh my gosh, so this is tough, right? Like the Celtics are sort of going to have to wait in Chicago to figure out if there's going to be the possibility of a game. I think we've seen this contact tracing can take some time, and so when you're talking about just a day between games, it's hard for me to imagine that game gets played. So do the Celtics go home? Do they wait and hang out in a hotel in Chicago where they can't leave? It's not an ideal situation, and yet, again, this is sort of what we're dealing with around the league, is just trying to get through this thing.
Yeah, I can't imagine what the Celtics are feeling right now. They are just barely finally coming out of that COVID cloud that they dealt with and do not certainly want to head into another lion's den. But this does beg the question, Chris, and it's something that our friend Chris Mannix proposed on Sports Illustrated today. Is a bubble, another bubble, something that should be really considered?
So I'll admit, when these postponements first started bubbling up, I said, well, I mean, bad pun there, but I thought it would be a good idea to examine the feasibility of it, because that was such a perfect situation last, 3 months ago. I could say last season, but
huge success. Yes.
And so, but we know the challenges that would be involved. Getting 30 teams, whether it would be regional bubbles or whatever, incredibly daunting, incredibly costly, incredibly just daunting logistically. I don't see the feasibility of it, and I think the NFL, in a way, is the motto right now, where you might just have to power through. And there might be some unsightly times where, like, the Denver Broncos didn't have a quarterback one night. And, you know, the Celtics have already been through the thick of it, but you hope that they don't have to go through that again. And so every team is probably going to go through a little something. It's going to impact other teams that are coming in and out. But ultimately, I think the league just puts its heads down, and if you got to get to multiple postponements here, I mean, they're already, what, 22, 23? And then you just try to jam them in the second half of the season. I know that's not ideal, and I know probably not medically and science the best way to do this, but it might be the only way.
And, I mean, the league somewhat expected some of this. I'm not sure if they expected it to the level that it has gotten to, but that is why they only put out the first half of the schedule. I have no idea what the second half is going to look like at this point with all of these postponements and different teams who's missed different games and all of that. What's really disappointing, though, and make sure you keep it tuned to NBCSportsBoston.com for the very latest on what does happen with that game on Wednesday and the Celtics and the Spurs, but Chris, that was going to be the time that we finally got to see the Celtics big three on the court together for the first time this season. Kemba out tonight, but would be expected to play in that game, and Jason Tatum back playing alongside Jaylen Brown.
So let me go spin zone on you. Okay, if this game doesn't happen, it stinks, and I don't like losing games. But the Celtics would get a couple practice days to get the three of them out there on the Auerbach Center floor and whatever COVID protocol they could do, and start ramping up for the Lakers on Saturday, which would be a pretty intriguing time to trot them out there. But yeah, like, this is the moment I've sort of been waiting for all season. As you know, even at the highs when they were winning close games at the start of the year to this little rough patch, it's been like, what will this look like closer to full? And so you get your three stars back, and you know, I'll be interested to see how Brad complements them. You know, which big is out there with them. How, you know, what does the rotation look like? Who are the bench guys you're leaning on? I think we're going to learn a lot more about what little nuggets that Brad has plucked from the start of the year and who he's confident going with when you've got more of these guys available. And ultimately, like, Jaylen's been so good. Jason Tatum has had his moments. Like, how does it all work together with Kemba? I think we think, you know, this isn't a net situation. We think Kemba's going to be a lot more deferential and find a way to accentuate those talents. Feeling out. We saw it in the bubble. Kemba was willing to take that step back. How much more does he have to kind of downshift? And what kind of looks do these guys get when they're all out there? It's going to be fun to see how it all comes together.
It is so crazy to think that we're 15 games into the season, almost a quarter of the way through, and the Celtics still don't know exactly what they have. There's still a lot more fact-finding for Brad Stevens to do, and he says it all the time, but we just have no idea what these two teams are going to look like when it matters most, and not these two teams, when the Celtics are going to look like when it matters most and the playoffs begin.
Yeah, we've got enough, like, where we feel pretty comfortable that they're going to be there. Like, their defense has to get better, and I think continuity will help that. You know, going back, you know, whether it's Tristan or Tyson, that starting lineup, you're going to have a lot of the familiarity you had last year with this core and in the bubble. And they've just played too well for me to think that this will persist. And we saw glimpses of that against the Cavaliers. But there's a difference in the Cavaliers and what happens on Saturday against the Lakers. So the more time that they can get, I think, what did we sit here last year and said, like, that starting five has only played for 71 minutes together. Like, hopefully this year they get a few more glimpses of how this all works and feel more confident going into the playoffs, whenever those are and whatever they look like. And hopefully they're not playing back-to-back-to-backs in the second half of the season and all that.
Oh, man. Do you remember from, what was it, the lockout season? Yeah, the 3 games and 3 nights. That was rough.